This is a video supplement to my manual on rebuilding these old Bosch diesel fuel injectors. You know, from time to time I'll have to come up with these supplements as things change in relation to procedures and also in relation to parts available. As is the case now, some of these shims we can no longer obtain, so I'm going to have to modify my kit and also modify the instructions on how to use the current shims that I can supply. It used to be that Monarch would supply all these different thickness shims. Here's a real thin one, a medium one, and a thick one. Some of them would actually be quite thick. So you could go through your selection and choose the right shim, put one shim in, and you'd be done with the adjustment of your fuel injection release pressure. Now I'm going to open up this injector now and show you where the shim is located and why it is so important that you get the correct sized shim when you go to rebuild these mechanical Bosch fuel injectors. If I skim over certain specifics, as I will here, it's because the information is the written manual tells you how to separate the two halves of the fuel injector by using a vise and the proper size wrench. Once you loosen these two halves up, you can unscrew them, and this is the way they come apart. You're going to concentrate here on the upper half, okay? There's a large spring here. We're going to pull the spring out. And usually down in there is a shim, which sets the spring pressure. And that's why I include this tool in the kit to allow you to go in there and get that shim out of there. Sometimes it's pretty hard to get that shim out of there. You got to fish around. If you can't easily get a hold of it with a pick, sometimes a light tap on the bench will get the shim coming out. Now look closely in this case. See how thick that shim is? Well, I can no longer get those. So if you're going to replace the nozzle and you go to test your fuel injector and it's not firing at the right pressure, you're going to have to either increase or decrease the thickness of the shim. And let me show you now how you're going to be able to do that using my variable thickness shim kit. The kit comes with 26 shims. You have 10, which are approximately 40 thousandths of an inch. You have 8, which are approximately 2 thousandths of an inch, and you have another 8, which are approximately 4 thousandths of an inch. You're going to need some type of caliper that you can accurately measure the thickness of these washers as you're coming up with a combination that will give you what you want. If the pressure is too high, you're going to have to reduce the thickness. So let's say the pressure is a couple hundred psi too high. So I'm going to measure this washer right there. Now that tells me that it is 58 thousandths of an inch. So I know that 2 of those is approximately 80 thousandths, so we don't want that. I could take 1 of these and 2 of those and 1 of these. Now, I'm going to recommend you get a magnet, particularly when you're working with these real thin ones. Okay, let's see what happens if we put all these together. Get the magnet and put them together like that. Now let's measure these. Look at that, 49 thousandths. So that particular combination would give you 50 thousandths of an inch if that is what you're looking for. So I feel that I'm giving you enough shims here that will allow you to adjust 5 fuel injectors with any number of combination that will get you the correct release pressure as outlined in my manual. You'll have to go back to my manual to explain the whole procedure and how much shim to add or take off depending upon how much PSI you want to either reduce or increase the release pressure. Now I want to show you why I included a couple other things in this kit. The 10 shim washers that I included in the kit, which are approximately 40 thousandths of an inch, are stamped steel washers. And they do have a sharp edge on the back side. So if you're going to use any of these, when you put your combination together, you need to clean off that sharp edge or it will give you a false reading. That's why I have included the sandpaper and the stick in the kit. So you can lay that right on the 320 sandpaper. I'm going to add just a drop of water. And then using the end of the stick, I will be able to sand this. And you want to do a circular motion. You don't need to do very much, just enough to kind of cut that edge, sharp edge off the washer, and you'll feel it when it starts to cut completely across the face. And I can look at it now and see, yep, that sharp edge is gone. So let's measure it now. I'm going to zero out the caliper. Put it right up in here, 38 thousandths. So the point there is if you put it in without cleaning it up, it will give you a false reading because as it wears in, it's going to move a couple thousandths of an inch. Now let's just experiment here and see how easy it is to take another 2 or 3 thousandths of an inch off this washer. Can we indeed sand it off if we have just a minor reduction that we want in the thickness? Now remember, that was 38 thousandths. Notice the end of the stick, it'll just hit the sandpaper and not wear the sandpaper out, but eventually it'll provide a little notch right there that will really hold this little washer tight as you work it in the sandpaper. So I'm going to do this about 30 times. All right, let's measure it again and see how much metal, if any, we were able to remove. .37. So you see we removed 1/1000th of an inch only. So if you plan to use the sandpaper method to reduce the thickness of these shims, it's going to take a while, but it will work if you're only reducing it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/1000ths of an inch. If it's too much, then go ahead and use a combination of the other shims to get the thickness you want. Now this should explain the operations, the differences in this particular shim kit. Please refer to my written manual for all other instructions related to overhauling your diesel fuel injectors.